They say you never truly know what you're capable of until someone pushes you past your breaking point. Mine came on a Tuesday afternoon when I watched my dead wife step out of the Ritz-Carlton, laughing, her fingers intertwined with my former business partners. Turns out grief isn't the hardest emotion to process, it's the rage that comes when you realize you've been mourning someone who never died. Before I continue, write in the comments which city you are listening from. And of course, subscribe to hear our new story tomorrow. Let me paint you a picture. 3 years of waking up reaching for a ghost. 3 years of conversations with an empty chair. 3 years of well-meaning friends telling me it's time to move on while I clutched at memories like a drowning man. All while my loving wife was very much alive, spending my money, fucking my business partner, and probably laughing at the elaborate performance she'd orchestrated. I'm Martin Blackwood. 57, built a private intelligence firm from nothing into an 8-figure business. Not that you'd have known it watching me that day, standing frozen on Madison Avenue, coffee spilling unnoticed over my trembling hand, world collapsing in slow motion. Evelyn looked different, her signature auburn hair now platinum blonde, cut in a sleek bob that framed her face in a way that made her almost unrecognizable. Almost. But 26 years of marriage leaves an imprint no disguise can erase. The tilt of her head when she laughed, the specific gesture of tucking hair behind her ear, the curve of her spine as she leaned into Daniel Sheffield, my former partner, supposed friend, apparent replacement. I ducked behind a newspaper stand before they could spot me, pulse hammering in my ears. Their black Bentley pulled up, and Daniel opened the door for her with the practiced gallantry of a man who's been performing the gesture for years. The diamond on her left hand, definitely not the one I'd given her, caught the afternoon sun, mocking me with its flawless brilliance. They slid into the back seat and disappeared into Manhattan traffic, leaving me clutching a cold coffee and the sudden crystalline clarity that comes with perfect betrayal. Back in my hotel room, I methodically dismantled the minibar while my mind worked with cold precision I hadn't accessed since my military intelligence days. Not the chaotic destruction of a man unraveling, but the calculated consumption of someone needing to dull just enough pain to think strategically. The facts assembled themselves like bullet points in a mission brief. My wife had faked her death. In a car accident 3 years ago, the $4.5 million life insurance policy had been paid out in full. Our joint investment accounts had been emptied 2 days before her accident. Daniel had bought my shares in our company for fair market value. That, in retrospect, was insultingly low. They were clearly living a life of luxury that had been built on the foundation of my destruction. By the time sunrise painted Manhattan's skyline, I had finished the minibar and formulated the beginnings of a plan. Not revenge. Revenge is emotional, messy, ultimately unsatisfying. No, what I wanted was justice. Cold, precise, comprehensive justice that would dismantle their world with the same methodical care they'd used to destroy mine. I called the conference. Organizers claimed a family emergency and booked a flight back to Chicago. In my home office, the one Evelyn had designed with soothing blue walls and ergonomic furniture because she'd claimed to care about my comfort, I began to assemble my team. First call, Marcus Delaney, cybersecurity genius who'd helped me build my company before I'd brought Daniel on as CFO. Second call, Rebecca Winters, former FBI forensic accountant who now worked exclusively for private clients, with the resources to make her services worthwhile. Final call, James Cooper, my oldest friend from Army intelligence, now running his own private investigation firm in Boston. I need a favor, I told James, my voice steadier than I'd expected. It's not strictly legal. When has that ever stopped us? He replied without hesitation. What's the target? My wife? The one who supposedly died 3 years ago. The silence stretched long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. Finally, Jesus Christ, Martin, are you saying Evelyn is alive? Very much so. And living, quite comfortably with Daniel Sheffield. Another pause. I'll be on the next flight to Chicago. Within 48 hours, my dining room had been transformed into an operations center. Marcus had already penetrated Daniel's laughably insecure personal email. Rebecca was unraveling a complex web of offshore accounts and shell companies that had been established in the months leading up to Evelyn's death. James had preliminary surveillance photos of their life in Greenwich, Connecticut, a $12 million estate hidden behind manicured hedges, and security gates that hadn't slowed him down for more than 10 minutes. They've been busy, Rebecca said, sliding a financial summary across the table. Life insurance payout, your company shares, joint accounts. They walked away with approximately $7.8 million of your assets, current net worth based on investment. Performance and real estate appreciation, just under $11 million. I nodded, examining the photographs James had taken, Evelyn lounging by their infinity pool, Daniel working out with a personal trainer on their immaculate lawn, the two of them hosting what appeared to be a dinner party with Greenwich's elite. The insurance fraud alone carries up to 20 years, Rebecca continued. We have enough to bring this to the FBI right now, and let them serve 5 years in minimum security before emerging with whatever assets they've hidden offshore? Shook my head. Not good enough. Marcus looked up from his laptop. You want to take everything. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Everything. Assets, reputation, freedom, and most importantly, I want to take each other from them. James raised an eyebrow. You think their relationship won't survive mutual destruction? I allowed myself the first genuine smile since seeing Evelyn alive. Daniel Sheffield is fundamentally a coward. The moment self-preservation becomes an option, he'll throw her under every available bus. And Evelyn? Rebecca asked. She's always been practical to the point of ruthlessness. Why do you think she married me in the first place? Stable, successful, trusting to the point of blindness. I studied her image in the surveillance photo. Still beautiful at 52, still carrying herself with the confidence that had first attracted me. No, the moment Daniel becomes a liability instead of an asset, she'll cut him loose without a backward glance. Over the next 3 weeks, we built our case and our trap. The financial evidence was damning, detailed records of how they'd methodically drained accounts, established new identities, and laundered my money through increasingly sophisticated channels. Marcus uncovered emails dating back 6 years before Evelyn's death, revealing an affair that had apparently begun almost immediately after I'd brought Daniel into the company. There's more, Marcus said one evening, his expression unusually grave. The accident, they used a body. My stomach clenched. What? A Jane Doe from the county morgue. Daniel's cousin works there. Looks like they paid him to falsify dental records. He slid his laptop toward me, showing me emails discussing the macabre details. The woman had already been cremated when you had the funeral. The depths of their depravity stunned even me, using someone's daughter, someone's sister, as a prop in their elaborate deception. I want the cousin's name, I said quietly. James leaned forward. Already on it, but there's something else you should see. He pulled up surveillance footage from outside a fertility clinic in Greenwich. The timestamp showed 2 weeks ago. There was Evelyn, being helped from their Bentley by Daniel, her hand protectively cradling what was unmistakably a pregnant belly. My world tilted sideways. She's pregnant? About 6 months along, based on appearance, James confirmed. They've been busy building their new life. I stared at the image, emotions cycling through me too quickly to process. Evelyn had always claimed she didn't want children during our marriage, one of my greatest disappointments, quietly accepted out of love for her. Now she was carrying Daniel's child, creating the family she denied me. This changes nothing, I finally said, though we all knew it changed everything. We moved forward as planned. Our intelligence gathering revealed an upcoming opportunity. Daniel and Evelyn were hosting a charity gala at their home, benefiting some environmental cause that provided excellent tax benefits and social capital. The guest list included Greenwich's elite potential investors for Daniel's newest venture and several state politicians whose influence he'd been cultivating, the perfect stage for their downfall. Through Rebecca's connections, I secured an invitation under an assumed name, Martin Bishop, a venture capitalist recently relocated from London. I spent a small fortune on a bespoke suit, grew a neatly trimmed beard that altered the shape of my face, and added gray contacts that changed my blue eyes to an unremarkable hazel. The transformation was subtle but effective, recognizable as myself only to someone who had known me intimately, someone like Evelyn. The night of the gala arrived with perfect early summer weather, warm with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the elaborate floral arrangements dotting the property. I arrived fashionably late, handed my keys to the valet, and stepped into what felt like an alternate reality, the life that had been built on the ashes of mine. Their home was a showcase of tasteful wealth, museum-quality art on the walls, custom furniture arranged in meticulously casual groupings, floor-to-ceiling windows framing manicured grounds that stretched to the distant tree line. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes engaged in the theater of caring deeply about whatever cause their hosts had deemed worthy of attention. I accepted champagne from a passing server and positioned myself strategically, visible enough to eventually attract attention, but not so prominent as to draw immediate notice. From this vantage point, I watched them work the room with practiced charm. Daniel looked prosperous and confident in his bespoke tuxedo, moving through social interactions with the easy entitlement of a man accustomed to deference. Evelyn was resplendent in a flowing emerald gown clearly designed to flatter her pregnant form, making her look not just expectant, but almost regal. They touched frequently, his hand at the small of her back, her fingers briefly squeezing his arm, the unconscious intimacy of a couple deeply connected. It was, I had to admit, a convincing performance of marital bliss. But then, Evelyn had always been an exceptional actress. I had 26 years of memories proving that particular talent. After 40 minutes of strategic mingling, I manufactured an encounter with Daniel near the bar, commenting knowledgeably on the Japanese whiskey he was sampling. His entrepreneurial radar immediately locked onto a potential new investor, and within minutes, he was enthusiastically explaining his latest venture, something involving sustainable energy storage that sounded suspiciously similar to concepts I'd explored before my life imploded. Fascinating approach, I said, the British accent I'd spent weeks perfecting rolling off my tongue with practiced ease. Have you considered the lithium supply chain constraints? His eyes lit up at the informed question. That's precisely why we're exploring sodium alternatives. The abundance factor alone changes the entire economic model. Martin Bishop, I said, extending my hand. Daniel Sheffield, he replied, his grip firm but clammy. You have an investor's eye for detail. Among other details, I smiled. Your wife is lovely, by the way. When is she due? August. He beamed with genuine pride. That made something twist painfully in my chest. Our first. How wonderful you must introduce me. 20 minutes later, he led me across the crowded great room to where Evelyn was charming a silver-haired couple who practically radiated old money. Darling, he called as we approached, you must meet Martin. He's just relocated from London and has some fascinating insights on energy storage solutions. Evelyn turned, her practiced social smile fixed perfectly in place until her eyes met mine. The recognition was instantaneous and unmistakable. The color drained from her face so rapidly I thought she might faint. Her hand went protectively to her stomach in an instinctive gesture that twisted the knife even deeper. To her credit, she recovered with remarkable speed, a slight widening of the eyes, a barely perceptible intake of breath, the only lingering evidence of her shock. "How lovely to meet you," she said, her voice steady as she extended her hand. I took it, feeling the slight tremor beneath her composed exterior. "The pleasure is entirely mine, Mrs. Sheffield. Your husband speaks very highly of your philanthropic work." Her eyes never left mine, searching for confirmation that this encounter was exactly what she feared. I held her gaze a beat too long, allowing just enough of my true self to show through the disguise to remove any doubt. "You must tell me what brings you to Greenwich," she said, her voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "It's quite a change." "From London. A desire for new beginnings," I replied. "Sometimes one needs to completely reinvent oneself. Wouldn't you agree?" Daniel, oblivious to the currents flowing between us, smiled broadly. "Martin's considering an investment in resonant storage. I thought perhaps we could have him over for dinner next week to discuss details." Panic flashed across Evelyn's face before she masked it. What a lovely idea. "Though, with the baby coming, perhaps meeting at the club would be more convenient?" "Nonsense," Daniel waved away her concern. "The house is certainly large enough to entertain one dinner guest." At precisely that moment, James texted from his position outside, "In place. Ready when you are." "If you'll excuse me," I said, checking my phone with theatrical discretion, "a matter requiring my attention. Perhaps we could continue this conversation a bit later." I withdrew before they could respond, making my way unhurriedly through the crowd toward Daniel's study, the location of which had been carefully noted in our preliminary surveillance. Behind me I could hear Evelyn's urgent whispers to Daniel, though I couldn't make out the words. The study was exactly what you'd expect: leather-bound books artfully arranged to suggest intellectual heft, without the inconvenience of actual reading, an imposing desk positioned to maximize the power dynamic with visitors, and a bar cart stocked with spirits expensive enough to impress but mainstream enough to be recognizable to guests. I poured myself a measure of 30-year-old Macallan and waited. It took less than 3 minutes for Evelyn to burst through the door, closing it firmly behind her. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed. All pretense of social graces evaporated. I swirled the whiskey in my glass, studying her as if she were a mildly interesting specimen. "Hello, Evelyn. You're looking remarkably alive for a woman I buried 3 years ago." "Martin." She stopped, visibly gathering herself. "This isn't what you think." "No, because I think it's exactly what it appears to be. You faked your death, collected my life insurance, emptied our accounts, and disappeared with my business partner, all while I grieved a woman who never died." I gestured toward her pregnant belly. "And apparently started a family you never wanted with me." She flinched at the last part. "It wasn't personal. If you say it was just business, I swear to kites, God, I'll laugh in your face." I drained the whiskey in one swallow, welcoming the burn. 3 years, Evelyn, 3 years of mourning, of blaming myself for not seeing signs of depression or unhappiness, of wondering if I could have prevented your accident somehow. "I'm sorry for your pain," she said, and remarkably seemed to mean it. "But this confrontation won't change." "Anything? What do you want? Money? I'm sure we can come to some arrangement." I laughed, a genuine laugh born of amazement at her audacity. "You think I tracked you down for a payout? That I infiltrated your home and your social circle for a settlement?" The door opened and Daniel entered, his face tight with confusion. "Evelyn, what's going on? Why did you—" He stopped short, finally registering my appearance without the benefit of expectations clouding his perception. "Wait, who are you really?" "Hello, Daniel," I said, dropping the British accent. "It's been a while." Recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. "Martin, Jesus Christ." He backed up a step, instinctively moving toward the door. "How did you—" "Find out my dead wife is actually alive and living in luxury with my former business partner," I finished for him. "I saw you in Manhattan, outside the Ritz." The blood drained from his face. "Martin, listen." "No, Daniel. You listen." I set down my glass and reached into my jacket pocket, withdrawing my phone. "For 3 weeks, I've been dismantling your lives, your finances, your secrets, your lies. I know everything, The offshore accounts, the shell companies, the fraudulent documents establishing Evelyn's new identity, the cousin at the morgue who supplied the body and falsified dental records. Evelyn sank into an armchair, one hand protectively covering her stomach, in a gesture that made rage flare hot and bright behind my eyes. "Don't worry," I said coldly. "I'm not here to harm either of you, or your child. I'm not the monster in this scenario." "Then what do you want?" Daniel demanded, attempting to reclaim some authority in his own home. I checked my watch. In approximately 90 seconds, every guest at this party will receive a video presentation on their phones. Simultaneously, it will be emailed to your entire social circle, business associates, and the relevant law enforcement agencies. Daniel lunged forward. "What video? What are you talking about?" I held up my phone, showing them the presentation Marcus had masterfully assembled. It began with newspaper articles about Evelyn's tragic death, followed by photos of them together dated after her supposed demise. Financial records scrolled across the screen, showing the systematic theft of assets. Email exchanges discussing the details of their plan, and finally, the surveillance photos from the past 3 weeks, their life of luxury built on fraud. "This is just a sample," I said as the video ended. "The full package includes enough evidence to guarantee federal charges for insurance fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. I'm particularly interested to see how the authorities respond to your use of a Jane Doe's body to fake a death. That's a special kind of depravity." Evelyn had gone deathly pale, her breathing shallow. Daniel was frantically checking his phone. "Nothing's happening," he said. "You're bluffing." As if on cue, the first sounds of disruption reached us from the main room, raised voices, gasps of shock, the unmistakable sound of social disaster unfolding in real time. "I don't bluff," I said quietly. "That's always been your specialty, Daniel, not mine." His phone began buzzing with incoming calls and messages. The panic in his eyes confirmed what I already knew. The carefully constructed facade of their lives was crumbling in real time. "You've destroyed us," Evelyn whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Our child will have parents who are alive to raise it," I cut in sharply, "which is more consideration than you showed me. Count yourself fortunate that my interest is justice, not vengeance." Daniel's face had transformed into a mask of calculation, already looking for angles, escape routes, someone to blame. "We can fix this," he said urgently, revealing the desperation beneath his confident exterior. "The video, the evidence, we can claim it's fabricated. Your word against ours. Against documented financial transactions, email records, witness, testimony from your cousin at the morgue." I shook my head. "Your Ivy League education is showing its limitations, Daniel." Evelyn stood suddenly, her composure returning with visible effort. "What are your terms?" "Evelyn, don't—" Daniel started. "Shut up," she snapped with unexpected vehemence. "This is over. He's won." She turned back to me. "What do you want, Martin? There must be something, or you'd have simply sent everything to the FBI without this theatrical confrontation." I allowed myself a small smile of genuine admiration. Even cornered, she remained formidable. It was what had attracted me to her in the first place, that steel beneath the charm. "My terms are simple. Full financial restitution, every penny of the insurance money, my company shares at current market value, plus interest. Public confession of your fraud. And you too," I glanced between them, "you get to avoid federal prison." "How?" Daniel asked suspiciously. "The cousin at the morgue, Jenkins, has agreed to take full responsibility for the body identification fraud, claims he did it for the money without understanding the full implications. His testimony suggests you believed you were simply helping Evelyn establish a new identity after leaving an abusive marriage. The lie about abuse tasted bitter on my tongue, but it served its purpose, a plausible narrative that might keep them out of prison." "Why would you offer us any way out?" Evelyn asked, studying me with the analytical gaze I remembered so well. "For your child," I said simply. No one should grow up with parents behind bars if it can be avoided. Something shifted in her expression. Perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in our entire marriage. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. You'll still face civil penalties, career destruction, and social exile. Your comfortable life is over as of tonight, but your child won't have to visit you through plexiglass for the next decade." I placed a folder on the desk. Complete confession and financial restitution agreements, already reviewed by my attorneys. You have 5 minutes to decide before I call in the FBI agents waiting outside. The real ones, not just for dramatic effect. I walked to the door, then paused. "One more thing. I want to know why. Not some bullshit about feeling trapped or needing freedom. The actual truth." Evelyn looked at Daniel, then back to me. "Would it make any difference now?" "Probably not. But I've earned the truth, don't you think?" She sighed, unconsciously rubbing her belly in small circles. "I never loved you, Martin. Not the way you deserved. I married you because you represented security, stability. For a girl who grew up with nothing, that was irresistible. And Daniel?" A small, sad smile touched her lips. "Passion, risk, everything you weren't. I absorbed the blow without flinching. You could have just asked for a divorce and get half when I could get it all." The flash of calculation in her eyes was immediate and revelatory. That wasn't an option for someone like me. I studied her for a long moment. This woman I'd shared my life with for 26 years, thinking I'd known her completely while never knowing her at all. "Sign the papers," I said finally. "For your child's sake, if nothing else." I left them, there amidst the wreckage of their meticulously constructed lies, and walked through their home one last time. Guests were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship, social disgrace being the one thing the wealthy truly fear. Outside, James waited by my car. "All done?" he asked quietly. "Almost." I looked back at the house, where shadows moved urgently behind. The windows. "Make sure those papers get to Rebecca immediately. I want the transfers initiated before they can try anything clever." "And them?" He nodded toward the house. "They made their choices," I said, suddenly tired beyond measure. "Now they get to live with them." 6 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of my villa in Tuscany, watching the sunset paint the vineyards in shades of gold and amber. Rebecca had handled the financial recovery flawlessly. Every penny returned with interest. Marcus had ensured the digital trail of their fraud remained accessible to authorities, resulting in significant civil penalties. But, as I'd arranged, no prison time. James had kept discreet tabs on their unraveling, reporting that Daniel had fled to Singapore shortly after their disgrace became complete, leaving Evelyn alone to give birth to their daughter. My phone chimed with a message from Rebecca. Final. Transfer complete. Sheffield assets liquidated. Recovered funds invested. As instructed. Case closed. I set the phone down without responding and sipped my wine. The Italian breeze carried away the last lingering tendrils of rage that had sustained me for months. In its place was something unexpected, not happiness exactly, but peace. The kind that comes from closing a chapter that should have ended years before. 1 month later, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a newborn with Evelyn's eyes and a brief note in her familiar handwriting. "Her name is Sophia. She'll never know about any of this. Thank you for that mercy, at least." I studied the photo for a long time, feeling nothing but a distant pity for a child born into such complicated beginnings. Then I dropped both photo and note into the fireplace and watched them curl and blacken in the flames. The dead don't cheat, but sometimes they do get a second chance at life. Evelyn had stolen 3 years of mine. I wouldn't waste a single additional day on the memory of a woman who had never really existed, except in my imagination. Some say living well is the best revenge. I disagree. The best revenge is freedom. From lies, from rage, from the past that never was. And as the Tuscan sun sank below the cypress-lined horizon, I raised my glass to the dying light and toasted my rebirth.